Hi, this is Suzanne in Ohio. Oh, I'm up early this morning and I'm here to show you the next phase in our bird kit process. Um, I have got mine to this stage, which I will explain. But what I want you to think about now, well, last time I showed you what my bird looked like after I had done the overstitching. We had done the fabric collage, put a little lace on there for some extra texture, and then did our overstitching, which can be as little or as much as you want. But this is how mine turned out. And what I wanted to show you was I cut him out. I don't know where my scrap is, but I cut him out right off of uh, the working foundation that I had him on. He was just like that. And I used a sharp pair of scissors. I did it off camera because I was working with a big pair of clunky scissors. Can't find my small scissors right now. But there he was. And I left the basting on while I cut him out because I didn't want all this fabric around him to scooch. Now, if you remember, mine was on layers. The original white muslin, and then I had a layer of felt for batting, and then my backing was a very thin piece of pellon. So I cut him out, and then I had to begin to think about a background setting for him. And that's what our outline said. Um, Decide on a setting. So I brought some pictures back again today to show you and just give you some ideas, refresh your memory. And once you've created this bird, it can go into a very small piece or go into a very larger piece, whatever you want him to end up as. But let's refresh our memory about what our choices are for backgrounds. So these were some Pinterest pictures that I just printed off just to give you some idea. So this little bird someone created, all they did was use some fibers and embroidery these little berries on a branch. And this one here, hey, let me turn another light on, see if it helps. It's still dark here in Ohio. I don't know if that'll be better or worse for the camera, but this one's sitting on a branch, just nothing on the background except this branch and these flowers. And they didn't even embroider these flowers. These were fussy cut out of a piece of fabric. So it can be as simple as you want it to be. And here's a picture of the one that I had done previous to this, and I put him on a setting like he's sitting on a bowl, perhaps in a country kitchen, and I did all the embroidery. And then I used fabric collage and an old found cross stitch from the thrift store. 1988 had the date on it. Here's a couple more. This bird is just in progress, and so I can't say whether the artist would put anything around it. But the background itself is sufficient if they didn't. And this one is the same way. It's nothing but some fabric collage, just 3 simple pieces, and then they put a butterfly on there, which was probably fussy cut. And this one, simple background, some textured fabrics, like looks like wool, actually looks like upholstery fabric, but who knows. And then I thought this one was interesting because it's a simple applique on the background, or if in fact this is paper, but you get the idea. You can do anything you want. And then this was the one that my sister had done a couple years ago, and her background, she stamped rubber stamps on it. So I thought that would refresh your memory. And I'll tell you, once you get your bird done, you can't wait to put him in a setting to see how beautiful he's going to be. So our talk today is about the settings. So when you cut out your image, if you're going to use him as an applique, or you perhaps maybe want to just use the foundation he's already on and add some slow stitching around that. I don't know. But we want to create a background and any other visual elements that you want to add into it. And then you're going to baste again. Now you can baste with your glue stick, or you can baste by hand, or you can make it easy on yourself and do a tiny bit of basting on the sewing machine. You could do free motion. Excuse me. And then you're going to add your overall slow stitching over top of your other elements, I presume. And then if you have a piece that requires it, you might want to do some dimple quilting around your image. But here's what I did, and I wanted to show it to you right now because I'm at the stage I'm ready to start stitching on this. Now, what I did here, I just cut myself a piece of muslin and a piece of that Pellon backing because I want it to help my stitches. I always have a thin piece of Pellon as my backing. We've talked about that before. I decided to put him in the thistle setting, and he will sit somewhere right here. Now, all you're seeing right now is the rough part of the scraps that I put down on the thistle. So try to ignore that for a minute, even though that's visually confusing perhaps. I want you to focus back here on the background. And what I did was just, I mean it, I just grabbed some scraps out of my laundry basket that sits near my table, and I laid them down, and then 2 big pieces of white curtain lace, one up here at the top, just a different texture in this one. And in the end, it's hardly going to show. So when I look backwards, I think I would have chose a different lace. But it really doesn't matter. I wanted to separate this busy rectangle background from the foreground so that it didn't get too confusing. And it does that. It works. It serves the purpose. So I cut out, I had some scraps in the proper colors, and I just fashioned them, I mean roughly, like these thistle heads. Now you've got one full thistle here, here, and this one is bent over sideways because I wanted the bird sitting on that as if he had bent it over. And I've got 2 thistle heads up here, and they have no color on them because I'll put just a very little tuft of color coming out the top of them with my threads. I didn't need to use the background fabric here. And then because it was busy, all I did was put a few leaves on here to imply, and then the stems. Now what I did was I cut a piece of fabric about 1/4 of an inch wide, and I twisted it because I want that texture, and I stitched it down. I don't know if I'll add more stitching on that or not, but I certainly will be stitching on the thistle heads because the base of the thistle head and the tuft all have a lot of texture. So the first thing I did was go look for any threads I have that were appropriate. And what I found was, I have a bunch of stuff from the thrift store. So in this bag, I've got a few pinks of perlé cotton, and I'll use that. I found a couple pieces of wool in the proper colors, and I've got this bag of perlé, and I've got a few colors in here that I can use, and then mostly I've got all these floss shanks that have all the right tones in it. I even found I had some variegated ones, and they were all in the proper colorway, so I'll be using those. And my thinking is that, and of course green, I'll be putting stitching on that, enough to imply all the spikes and stuff that are on a thistle. But this could end up to be a tremendous amount of stitching if I want it to be. Or I could use something with a thicker thread, and I could really get a bang for my buck, even if I double it through my needle and come in and out. So I'm going to be using this thicker thread and the perlé cotton, this little bit of wool, and put great big soft tufts on the top of all these thistles and a little bit there. And then I'll have to put some spiky stuff coming off the stems and off the bulb of the thistle base, because that's how thistles are. So when I get that to a certain point, I'll put my bird in here. I'll probably finish everything in the background except this thistle head here, because what I want is for some of the thistle petals to come up on his belly, and some of these green ones to come up on his belly, as if he's perched right on top of that thistle head. Now that's my plan. And then the question is, will I put anything back here in this background? So let me tell you about that again. After I laid down all these squares, I laid down the lace, and then I laid a piece of wetting tool over top of that. Just the background, not the thistles, but just over top the rectangles and the lace. And I took this to the machine, and I went around all four sides, and I went around the white lace. And what that did was that gave a little bit of stitching over top of almost everything. I didn't want to lose my shape or have any of them corners come loose. You can't even see the wetting tool when it's done. So I've got everything stationary, and I'm going to stitch right over top of that, and before I put the bird down. And I hope you're doing some stitching. I think that's all I need to show you today. I wanted to get this little video out because I hope to do some stitching on this today, and I wanted you to see it before I even got around to doing it. I wanted you to see what it looked like. Now, how did I create these pieces? I just used the proper greens, some dark, some light, and the trick is put some dark on some light and some light on some dark. And I did it very much in the same fashion as we did the bird, except not quite as detailed. I just wanted to get some background color on there because a lot of it won't even show after I get done stitching. But it forms a wonderful base. And you can see I used a printed fabric for the leaves. I wanted that little touch of rust in there, something with some interest. Now, as far as the colors in my background, the only thing I had in my mind was to go from green to blue, as if it's outside. Green at the bottom for botanicals, up here blue. And then if I found anything in my basket that I thought would go, I put it in there. And I purposely put these touches of yellow to pick up the yellow in the bird. I didn't want the background to have no yellow and him to look like he was sticking out. All right, that's my process of thought. There's my background ready to stitch on, and I hope you've given it some thought and create a background that with as much or as little work to it as you want. And give a little bit of forethought ahead of time how you're going to finish it off. Is it going to be a tiny little wall hanging? Is it going to mount on the front of a book, such as a junk journal or something like that? You could even put him on a needle book. I've been doing a lot of needle books, so I'm thinking I'll put one of my birds on that for my next project. But it's oh so fun and so meditative and just a wonderful process. Now, I will say this, when you start laying down rough pieces like this, you're going to say to yourself, oh, that's ugly. That's never going to work. But it will. It will come alive when you put overstitching on top of it. So don't be afraid. Get an idea and execute it. Whatever you do will end up absolutely charming, and you'll be delighted with yourself. All right, now I can get to stitching. And I appreciate you watching. And if you're uncertain what we're doing here, go back and watch my videos. They start with the introduction to the bird kits, and we're already up to video number 5. This is video number 5, and just trying to pace you through all the proper steps to get a nice piece that you'll be happy with. All right, the next time I see you, I will have my overstitching done, and then we'll talk about what kind of finish work I'm going to do. We have several options. All right, have a wonderful day, and if you're enjoying following along with this, give me a thumbs up and leave a comment, and I'll see you next video. Thanks for watching.